Now we're turning our attention to hurling, and yeah, it's the middle of April and the championship is starting. Tommy Walsh, good morning to you. What are you looking forward to the most?
Yeah, good morning, Jerry. Good morning, Johnny. So yeah, it's so early, Jerry. Usually when we played our first round in the championship, it was the first week in June. So you're talking about 2 months beforehand. Whole different type of hurling. Now the one thing that is, I suppose, still constant, they're heading down to Park Queeve. There's a crowd down there. 40,000 people expected down there. I wasn't at a Munster Championship game until I retired from hurling, and it is a great occasion. Walking down the streets, from parking it up about 2 miles away from the ground, down the hill, down into that lovely setting where you can just see the crowds and crowds spilling into Park Queeve. The new stand is amazing. They got a lot of heat at the time for spending so much money on it. But isn't it great to have it? Isn't it great to have it like for the future of promoting our sport, promoting hurling? So I can't wait for the game for Limerick and Cork this Sunday. It's going to be epic, Ger.
Just on that, Ger, sorry. Like, they got heat about Páirc Uí Chaoimh. Like, the ground, the facilities in this country in general are so far behind. Like, how many modern stadiums do we have? Why is it not a good thing that you'd build a stadium as modern as Páirc Uí Chaoimh?
Well, I suppose...
And obviously fund it then properly afterwards.
Ask the Cork footballers about that, because they have to get Ed Sheeran into play, and they're not going to be able to play Kerry there. So
our grounds are a joke in this country. Like, our grounds are an absolute joke. Like, you go all around the country, even the top GA grounds, they look like something from the 1960s in communist Russia. Like, they're miles behind. Like, I don't get it, Tommy. Like, you can go to this brand spanking stadium in Páirc Uí Chaoimh that should be not an outlier, but something that we should aspire to in several counties.
Well, it all comes down to money, Johnny, I suppose. We are a small country. There's more than just hurling. There's rugby, there's horse racing, there's soccer. So there's so many sports, and it's the same people kind of playing most of them, Johnny. So I think that's the reason. But I think there is a lot of good work. If you look at the club grounds around the country, Johnny, I think the facilities, and it's all to do with being practical. The facilities around the country now for practical use, I think, are amazing. There's AstroTurf pitches going in at the moment, so this isn't something that will be used once a week or once a month or once every couple of months. These are grounds that will be used for people to get out of their houses every day of the week. So yeah, there mightn't be these huge stadiums, but I think practically there's magical, magnificent pitches, facilities, all to do with the GA around the country, and it's leading to there's walkways. There's a walkway in Tullaroan that was probably ahead of their time. Because people that time were walking the road still. Why would you spend so much money, kind of a boring walkway around your GA facility? Now it's being used by everyone, from young people to old. So I take your point, but I think money is probably the big thing there, Johnny.
No, I think you're dead right. Let's get on to the hurling itself then. So what's the truth about both Cork and Limerick? There are big questions that we don't know the answers to about both teams at the moment. Let's start with Cork. We had Pat Horgan on the show a couple of weeks ago, maybe just even last week at this stage, and he was relatively happy, it seemed, with where things were. Not that they'd forgotten about the All-Ireland final or indeed the league final. It was like, this is a journey we're on and we need to be ready when the championship comes, and that wasn't championship. Championship starts next week. So they took lots of positives from the league campaign. What did you take from it?
Yeah, I think for Cork, probably just the unlucky thing for them is they're playing the All-Ireland champions. They're playing a team that has won so much, so many trophies in the cabinet. So they're playing a seasoned outfit with plenty of confidence and now a freshness after being laid off for the last 6 or 8 weeks. That's the unlucky thing, I'd say, for me, for Cork, Ger. What would I take out of the league for Cork is that they're doing a lot of things well. They're fast, they're well able to play with the ball. If they can just sort out the conceding of goals and even scores. So now this has been probably what they have needed to tighten up on for a long time. That brilliant going forward is that when they don't have the ball, they need to get into tackles. And I did see a big improvement in that in the early parts of the league. And it wasn't even so much, I think, their intensity in the league final that conceded so much. It's just that they were a bit porous at the back, that they weren't tracking back. So the intensity in tackle, I think, was still there, Ger, in the league final. But I think they just weren't tracking back enough, covering for teammates. So I think if they scored, it was a 420 to 123. They scored a lot in that league final. It's just they conceded the goals. And the same with Wexford against Waterford in the semi-final. There's no old saying, Ger, goals are in matches. but also if you concede goals, you lose matches. So I think if they can tighten up and defend as a unit, and that's from 15 back to 2, as opposed to just defending your own man, your own mark, your own guy. Remember when we were youngsters going into the Kenny panel, Peter Parry said to JJ Delaney, "Don't ever forget, when you look around, I'll always be beside you." That's a huge thing for a young person to hear that. It just gives you confidence to go out and attack the ball. Listen, if my man does get the ball, my teammate, that centre back, and Peter Barry would have been a much respected figure at the time, I'll be there for you. So if they can take on that kind of an attitude, that if you're a midfielder, you can track back, and although like you'll stop a goal at that particular time, when the player runs out, you might be there to just cover off a ball going into a wing forward that's after making a run. It mightn't be picked up in the Sunday game, it mightn't be picked up on any podcasts, any media Monday morning, but you know that you saved a goal opportunity, and that's the... If they can...
We're just having some trouble with your line there, Tommy. We're gonna pull that line and ring you back and try and fix it. It's 19 minutes past 8 and we're previewing the start of the Hurling Championship, which is, as Tommy said, this weekend, a couple of months earlier than usual.
It's mad, isn't it? Yeah, I had to be reminded. As we're saying, going to the game Waterford, and my mates were like, "Why don't you stop in Wexford on the way back?" It's a strange one, yeah, but it'll be great to see Porky Queeve heaving, because as you mentioned, they do need sport in the ground. That's just going to be an amazing atmosphere at that game, I think.
Patrick Campbell says Good Friday is in the amber. It's just a grand Friday.
Yeah,
it's day off for most people though. That kicks it into the good.
It's strange though, as a journalist, all the bank holidays never meant anything to me. I was always kind of working anyway, and I had to be reminded constantly that it was actually Easter weekend at all, because every day is the same really when you're a sporting journalist.
Shifty Lad asks, why do pundits like Simeone? Dirtbag football and cheating and acting the maggot. Not for me.
All of those reasons.
That's why we like him.
Like, it's just, sometimes I mean, if I were playing against him, obviously I'd want to kick him as well.
I do also like the fact that Atletico Madrid are carved and built in the shadow of Franco's Real Madrid.
Absolutely.
It's Royal Madrid. It's like, we are the kings. We take everything, we own everything, and when we run into trouble, we do sweetheart deals with the government to get us out of all of our debts. And all the time, Atletico Madrid have been the team of the Madridistas, the actual people who live in Madrid. And
I've been to a game there. It's a cracking atmosphere. It's a great vibe on the ground. And I've no doubt it'd be better than the Bernabeu to watch a game.
All right, we do have we've reconnected with Tommy this morning. Tommy, we were talking there about the defensive structure that Cork, maybe structure is the wrong word, application that they need for this game against Limerick. Can you turn that around when you've just been humiliated the way they were in a league final in the space of 2 weeks against a team as good as Limerick?
Yeah, I think so. I think because it's a small thing. They don't have to go around changing around their team a whole lot. They don't have to change around game plans a whole lot. It's basically just getting into your defenders and midfielders, the psyche that you have to defend as well as attack. And, a diving block, a diving hook, that's what could win you all Ireland. We've seen Paddy Maher doing it for Tipperary. We've seen other players, JJ Delaney doing it for Kilkenny. We've seen Tyrone doing it in All-Ireland final. Diving blocks, diving hooks, these type of things, tracking back, that's what can win you All Irelands. That's what can win you Munster Championships. And I think it's a small thing, but a major thing.
We had Garrod Hegarty on during the week as well, and he was not at all concerned about the league form. We were talking about last year's league form when they were kind of not a million miles away from this year's league form. They won a couple of games last year, all right, in fairness, but it was different. There was, I don't even remember if there was any crowds. There were some crowds, there wasn't the full crowds, and they were narky last year in the league as well. They were narky this year in the league. He said the narkiness was because you're just a little bit behind where you feel like you need to be, but we will be ready come championship, and we just have to trust that they will be ready because they've shown us 3 out of the last 4 years that they get ready for the right time of the year.
Yeah, they do, and they probably get ready all the time. It's just that they went back so late this year. Maybe their fitness and their a ball to hand, which is such an important part of their game plan, wasn't up to speed. But I think mentally they're probably always up for every game. So that's what lends it to that they don't just switch on, switch off during championship games, Ger. I think this league is after really playing into Limerick's hands. John Kiley, I'd say, was rubbing his hands while all the attention was focused on the negative aspects of their play, of their, preparation in the league. I say he himself and Kinnerk, I'd say, were rubbing their hands with Lee, because championship is what it really is all about. They have the titles in the bag. They're not a team that's just trying to, win, get the psyche of getting over the line, which maybe Waterford and Cork needed to do. This Limerick team has done it. So it's all about preparing for championship for them. They take the Munster Championship really, really seriously. They're going for 4 in a row this year. They're going for, a 3 in a row of All-Irelands. So, it's like if you were in the Limerick dressing room, I could just imagine it. All that you've won, and the whole country talking about how you play on the edge, how Waterford are now the team to beat. Like, it must be just, I'd say, the freshness. I'd say that there's not a sense of complacency in that dressing room. I think the whole country is after feeding into that and helping Limerick.
There must be a lot of challenges there as well, because obviously, when you raise the bar like Kenny did, other counties basically try to emulate you or better you, and Limerick, like a horse trained for Cheltenham, you can't just keep producing a team year in year out who are ready for the league and ready for the championship at the same time. So does it get harder with every year to because hurling obviously evolves quite quickly as a game as well? Does it get harder for them to say, well, we want to go again this year, do we tweak something?
Yeah, I think Johnny, it would if they had a decent league campaign. But maybe this is the way it was planned from John, from Kinnerk. That listen, let's just ease ourselves back into the league. Next minute, a few defeats come around. Next minute, the whole country is on their back. They're building up Cork. They're building up Waterford. Nobody's even talking about Limerick. Even coming into this weekend, everyone's wondering, where are Limerick? No one has a clue. We haven't seen them for 6 weeks. They're off in Portugal in a training camp. And I was listening to that interview with Gerard Hegarty, Jared, yourself. Like mentally, they're very well prepared. They're in a great position. And I think Caroline Curran has a fierce important part to play in that group. She keeps them all level-headed. And I think it's just going to be massive. And I can't wait to see, we talk about Limerick playing the edge. They're going to play in the edge on Saturday night, and I can't wait to see it.
He did us the day after he'd done the written lads, and on the morning before we actually spoke to Gerard Hegarty, he spoke about his team being compared with your team and how it didn't feel right just yet, that they didn't have enough All-Irelands to be able to get to that point. But he kind of dodged my question about whether or not history was important to them. But it clearly is. It definitely is a motivation that they have an opportunity here to be an all-time great team and to get close to you guys and to hoover up All-Irelands the way you did. Do you sense similarities between your group and this group? Just even when you were talking there about the whole country is saying they play on the edge, I was like, that reminds me of something there, Tommy. There's something there in your own history about that.
Yeah, no, I think they're very much the same, really, to be honest. Like, everything that you hear coming out of their camp is everything that would have went on in our camp. If a lad sneezed at you across the room, you'd nearly take it as a slight, and you'd use that as a try and prove them wrong. So you just use everything. I think the more you win, the more you have to use. And when you're champions, you're up there to be, they're throwing darts at them, and that's just feeding into their, if everyone told Limerick they're a great team and they've nothing to prove to anyone, where do they go from then? Then I'd agree with Johnny, it's hard to get up for every game. You have the whole country, you've now about this guy playing on the edge, that guy playing on the edge. They're not going to be listening to it, but they will hear it. So while they won't maybe acknowledge it publicly, I'm sure deep down, even if they don't acknowledge it in their own team setting, they will want to prove people wrong. And Gerard Hegarty will love nothing better than to prove people wrong next Saturday night.
Despite all what Tommy says, they're still basically odds on or even money to win the All-Ireland. So the bookmakers are saying it's quite straightforward. It's 50-50. Limerick win the All-Ireland or someone else wins it. So which side are you on, Tommy?
Yeah, well, I think Saturday night or Sunday against between Cork and Limerick, there's going to be a huge battle. I look at the four guys: Kyle Hayes, who's supposed to be doubtful with injury, and then the half Hurling, Gerard Hegarty, Cian Lynch and Tom Morrissey. They're the four pillars of this Limerick team. They're brilliant players all over the field, but they're the pillars. Take down 1-2 of them pillars and you can get at this Limerick team. Cian Lynch is supposed to be carrying a nickel or two. I'm looking at Cork, how are they going to come up against them? They'll probably put maybe a ball player on Kyle Hayes, or someone maybe just keep him out on the sideline. If you notice Kyle Hayes where he attacks the team, he doesn't move a whole lot from where he lines out on number 7, left wing back. He goes up and down that line. So I would see someone just standing out in that line beside him, just tracking his runs, or maybe taking him on, going down that sideline. You won't be going left across the field into the full forward line. You'll just stay in that side of the field if Kyle Hayes is playing and keep him out of the game. That's one way that Cork can beat Limerick this weekend. The other way is I think they'll put Miller at back centre back on Cian Lynch and get him to follow him. There were 2 powers in the All-Ireland final. There were 2 powers in the league final. So I think they'll put Miller at back centre back. He'll follow. He's a great man, Mark. He's as tough as nails. And I think then, Mark Coleman just hover around the centre and clean up balls. So I think that's where they will try and attack Limerick. I think Limerick are the favourites for the All-Ireland, in my view. They deservedly are. I think they will win it. But there'll be a lot to... Cork will have a lot to say about this weekend.
The point you make as well about we're all talking up Waterford, and we all kind of want Waterford to reach a level where they're going to be able to go toe to toe with Limerick. Part of that is because we want to see Limerick pushed to the absolute pin of their collar to see how great they can be and see where they can take that, because that didn't happen in last year's All-Ireland final. But I think the other thing about Waterford is that they have been building, and their age profile is really excellent, and they now have strength in depth, and it's different strength in depth from their perspective than we've seen in recent years. So they should believe they're legitimate All-Ireland contenders. Whatever journey they're on, there's a strong case to be made that this is a year where they could peak and legitimately go toe to toe.
Yeah, and Jared, it's amazing how small things can change things. Like this, Watford have not won a game since the Munster Championship has went to a round robin series. They have not won a game. I think they've only got 1 point, and that was off Tipperary. Remember the time of the Austin Gleeson goal? The goal that was they got 1 point off Tipperary that year. I don't think Tipperary even beat anyone that year. So Watford's experience in this round robin series has been terrible. So they have a lot to prove this weekend when they take on Tipperary. And another interesting point from the league, Ger, is that Tipperary were beaten by Dublin. I think it was 2-16 to 21 points. They were beaten by a point down in Semple Stadium. If Tipperary had to beat Dublin that day, which normally you would expect Tipperary to beat down their home patch, Waterford were out of the league. Would have been Kilkenny and Tipperary would have went through on 8 points, and we wouldn't probably be talking about Waterford. Waterford drew at Antrim, Tipperary beat Antrim 7-29 to maybe 18 or 19 points. So this weekend, I think, is the most important game for Waterford in the last 2 or 3 years, bar the All-Ireland final, obviously. But this is the one. If they can win this, like the old saying there is 2 small Latin Hebra, good starts half the battle. This is key for Waterford. If Waterford don't win Saturday against Tipperary, and this is a Tipperary team that hasn't been doing as badly as people expected, albeit they're missing Callanan and Bubbles is out, Paddy Marr's retired, Brendan Marr's retired. They still have a serious outfit. Down O'Melch Park in a tight field, anything can happen. Tipperary have the added hunger. I heard you talking the other day, but hunger, in my view, is a massive thing, huge thing. And I think they'll have a massive hunger, albeit only a part of a game plan, but albeit I think a very significant one. And I think the mentality of Tipperary, there's no pressure on them. All the talk is on Waterford. I think will be huge going into this weekend. And if there's any upset, I'd say, of this weekend, it could be Tipperary versus Waterford.
Right, okay, because we've been certainly talking about Liam Cahill as one of the best managers in the country, and it sounds like you're talking about a potential ambush here where we expect Waterford to win at home against a Tipperary team who are weakened, but I suppose the Munster Championship is littered with, and Tipperary being underdogs against Waterford is kind of ridiculous when you think about it in a historical context as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And I heard the Brian Cody say before an interview, Tipperary don't go away, and they don't. They're traditions, they're a big hurling county, they'll stay producing hurlers. They won 2 under-21s, and we just haven't seen them transition to this senior team. So listen, it's going to be interesting this weekend.
Just gone sideways there, Tommy. Yeah.
Did that plenty when he was playing as well.
It's the Tipperary lads getting in saying, don't be giving the game away that we're back.
I definitely want to ask him what he makes of Leinster and how far off Galway are in particular, I suppose.
Just about to move on to that. It's 4:30 on Saturday afternoon.
Yeah.
Potentially the game of the weekend.
Yeah.
Obviously the Munster Hurling Championship. It's heresy to say that anything is ever as good as the Munster Hurling Championship. But Tommy, Wexford and Galway on Saturday afternoon. Johnny particularly interested in this one. This has the potential to be the game of the weekend. And you're talking about the biggest game for Waterford. Like if Wexford get off to a bad start, that championship could be blown for them. If Galway get off to a bad start, that championship could be blown for them.
Yeah, 100%. This is a big one. The way I look at this Wexford versus Galway game, Ger, it's the new managers. It's basically two new managers in their first year. And the way I look at it, it's new systems versus new players.
And post-Joe Canning for Galway as well, Tommy. Like it's like the start of a new era almost.
It is, like, the huge amount of players over the age of 30 in last year's campaign, Johnny. But this year, they're after trying now a huge number of players in the league. And can them players step up along with the Garrod McInerney's and the Dahi Burks? That will be the question for Henry Shefflin. Will they answer it this weekend when the heat comes on? Usually when you're bringing in new players like that, it takes a couple of years along with a new manager to see who you can trust, see who we can play in certain positions. So I think for these new players, they had a good league, in fairness. Tom Monaghan is starting to make regular appearances. You know, when they played in the league, Wexford beaten 2-15, I think, to 15 points, but Conor Whelan is missing that way for Galway. So it's going to be a huge weekend for Henry Shefflin and all them new players. You have Glennon, you have Hastings. So they had fantastic league campaigns, but can they produce it now in the championship will be the key. For Darren, his Wexford team, Johnny, I think there's a huge change from the system they played last year to this year. We've seen them having, like, they won all their games in their regular games in the league, but suddenly then they concede 5 goals in the semi-finals against Waterford. I think that's because the defenders weren't used to defending possibly one-on-one. They were used to defending maybe in groups, so that you only had to break down the ball for the sweeper. You have 2 sweepers, 3 sweepers. Now they're mostly one-on-one. Now the joy for their forwards then is suddenly they're one-on-one with their players. So that's why you're seeing Rory O'Connor having a fantastic league campaign. He's really after, growing up this year. So I think if they can concede like Cork, if they can stop conceding goals, they have a huge chance against Galway this weekend.
It'll be a fair old atmosphere as well.
Yeah, it should be great. Give us your predictions then for the weekend. Wexford against Galway.
Wexford.
Just last question on Galway, right? The player turnover, it's either a brilliant idea if it works, or it's too much too soon if it doesn't. And the truth is obviously always in the middle somewhere. Are you surprised that they have tried so many so quickly, or is that exactly what Galway really needed?
No, I think it's what Galway needed for the long-term future, especially. And even now, all the great players are probably growing all together. You go to look at Alex Ferguson when he's over Manchester United. They're always looking a year or 2 or 3 years down the line. Brian Cody was the same with Kilkenny. So albeit, listen, the 15 best players could be the 15 oldest players. But if you want to look to the future, well, then you have to start feeding in the young players, because they'll only learn from playing with the more experienced players. So I think it is the right decision. Like, he hasn't landed any bombshells. He hasn't dropped the fella that everyone is kind of saying, why is this person dropped? He should be on the team. I think it's a natural progression for this Galway team. Like, they haven't been producing it the last 2 years. It'd be different if they were coming off the back of 2 good campaigns, Ger. But I don't think they have. So I think it's more a natural progression for this Galway team.
Just briefly on that, Tommy, like the last 2 times Galway played Limerick in the championship, it was extremely close, despite Galway having arguments that an awful lot went against them, or they didn't perform on the day. So I don't think they've any real fear of Limerick at the same time.
Different team now, though.
It's a different team, but it's essentially the same. Like, apart from Joe Canning, it's a lot of the same kind of players in the spine of the team.
Yeah, but I think it'll be a smaller team, Johnny. Dahi Burke, he'll be full back. I'd imagine Garrod will still be centre back. But up forward then, like so Niall Burke was huge, as in physical player as well as a huge player on the big occasion. Joe Canning was a big player. So they've lost, Johnny Glynn. So going back to that All-Ireland successful winning team, like, they've lost a lot of physicality. So it's a new type of a I remember after won the All-Ireland 2017, we went up to Peter Stadium to play him up on Galway, and we went toe-to-toe with him for a while, but then he just took over like a team at the peak of its powers. So that team was at Conor Cooney, that team was at the peak of its powers back then. Now it's not. It's so they're new, smaller players, so they'll have to play a different brand of hurling, more clever. They won't be able to just launch it up and win it and score goals. That was a great goal-scoring team, Johnny, back then. This team, I would imagine, due to their size, and that will be more a point-scoring team, I think.
All right, just to quickly go through the Munster predictions. It sounds like you're tipping Tipperary to beat Waterford, are you?
No, I won't, because I'm just saying there could be an ambush, as you said, Ger. There could be a shot. I'm just saying, don't write off Tipperary. You can't write off any Tipperary team. They always produce good hurlers. Their club campaign is always hugely competitive. They always produce stars. They still have, like, John McGrath scored 1-3 or 2-3 against Antrim. I know it was the last game of the league and there wasn't a lot riding on it, but still, when you're producing 729, that's a massive score. Jason Ford, like, is in the peak of his powers at the moment. Mike Breen is going well, so Ronan and Marr, so some of them players are going to stand up. So I'd say don't write him off, but Waterford deserve huge credit. They've been consistent, so they're not just on and off. They have been consistent. They've been in the last 2 All-Ireland semi-finals. So listen, a motivation for them will be to try and get their first win in the round robin series since it started.
Okay, and then Cork Limerick, is it a Limerick win by close, or is it a Limerick easy enough win and that's a step back for Cork? What do you think?
Yeah, no, I think it'll be huge, because I think Cork will learn from that league final, and I think they will learn how to, they'll defend more as a unit than individuals. I'd expect them, they would have heard the noises. Anyone with a pair of eyes could have told them that, and they would have seen that themselves. So I think they will learn from that league final, but I think Limerick will be too strong for them on the night and the day.
All right, and Tommy, I know you wanted to give somebody a shout out this morning.
Yeah, so a big shout out the Higgins brothers up in Ballyhonus, Jerry in Mayo, the Ballyhonus GA Club, Frank Brown. They've done huge work to raise awareness for the motor neuron disease over the last couple of weeks. If anyone types in Hurling for Hope into Google, they will see what it's all about. But they've done huge. They sold around 100 kilometres in a couple of days there a few weeks ago. But they're raising huge money, but more importantly, huge awareness for the motor neuron disease up there in Mayo. But I'd also like a shout out, Ger. It just brought me back to a funny story when I was up in Turin, a great GA club, hurling club up in Mayo a couple of years ago. I was presenting medals and just talking to the locals anyway, and happened to be talking to one fella in particular, and he was just asking me about the club and how it was going, and I was just saying, listen, it's going all right, but I hadn't won a senior championship, and I said to him, what about yourself? Did you win any yourself? Because 24 of them. So I'd like to just give a shout out, and maybe going forward I might give a shout out most weeks, but this week a big shout out to Joe Henry. So he's from the Turin Hurling Club up in Mayo. 24 senior championships he has. Hurling, I think he could even have a football one as well. He has a 10 in a row done, he has a 7 in a row done, a 3 in a row, and he has 2 in a rows. And I remember I went back to Kilkenny training the following night whenever we were training, and I just said to Brian Cody, and I just said, I was talking to a lad there the other night. I said, he has a fair few county championships, And he said, how many does he have? I said, 24. And he goes, where is he from? I said, Mayo. Joe Henry. I said, Joe Henry. So he said he played Railway Cup and everything. I think he has a couple of Railway Cups. He was on All-Star tours. Brian Cody said he was an unbelievable hurler, this guy. Right. So, so a big shout out to Joe Henry, and to the guys, I suppose when you're in the traditional counties, Durham counties, or football counties, they forget about the pockets in the non-traditional places, and totally. Like Turin, Ballyhon is huge hurling places. So big shout out to Joe and everyone up there.
Good stuff. Yeah, class. Absolutely. I can picture the scene of you sidling up to Cody going, I've got a story for you, and he's like, yeah, I know it. Yeah.
Know him well. Move on.
Get out there and do some training. Tommy, good stuff. Thanks a million. Cheers.
Yeah. Bye.
That's this week's edition of Tommy Walsh Goodness?
He's just unbelievably class. I should mention as well, Dundalk are unveiling a charity jersey in aid of the motor neuron disease for a one-off charity game against Shells on April 22nd. I don't know, obviously the struggles of Charlie Bird, I think we're all moved by that disease and how horrific it is, and it's great to see clubs like Dundalk and obviously, as Tommy mentioned there, clubs making the fight against it.